Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. Pakistan has demanded a judicial inquiry under international scrutiny into the extrajudicial killing of 3 youths in occupied Kashmir earlier this year. This comes as the Indian Army admitted its troops killed the 3 laborers in a staged gun battle in the Shopian district in July. In a statement, Pakistan's Foreign Office said Indian troops have killed over 300 Kashmiris during the past 1 year. Pakistan Army has killed 4 terrorists in an intelligence-based operation in the Everton district of southwestern Balochistan. In a statement, the military's media wing said security forces have also recovered a large cache of arms, ammunition and communication equipment. Iran has vowed to avenge the assassination of General Qassem Suleimani, who was killed in a US missile strike in Iraq earlier this year. In a statement, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Chief Major General Hussein Salami said Tehran will target anyone involved in the assassination. He said Iran's military is ready to respond to any provocation from the US. Belarus has warned the EU against inviting opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya to a ministerial meeting of the bloc next week. The foreign ministry said the participation of Tikhanovskaya in the meeting will be deemed as interference in the country's internal affairs. Belarus has been rocked by weeks of protests against the alleged rigging in last month's presidential election. India has reported world's highest 1,247 COVID-19 deaths, taking the toll over 85,000, with infection tally crossing 5.3 million. Meanwhile, Brazil has registered 858 deaths and nearly 40,000 cases in a day. In Pakistan, 7 people lost their lives to the virus overnight, bringing the count to 6,415, with more than 305,000 infections. Globally, the virus has claimed over 950,000 lives and infected more than 30 million people so far. Those are the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Pakistan has demanded a judicial inquiry under international scrutiny into the extrajudicial killing of 3 civilians in occupied Kashmir earlier this year. This comes as the Indian Army admitted its troops killed the 3 laborers in a staged gun battle in the Shopian district in July. In a statement, Pakistan's Foreign Office, the BJP leadership is directly responsible for crimes against the Kashmiri people. It said Indian atrocities in Kashmir have increased since it revoked the valley's special status in August last year. Since then, Indian troops have killed over 300 Kashmiris in fake encounters and so-called search and cordon operations. The Foreign Office urged the international community to help stop ongoing Indian brutalities in the valley. Pakistan Army has killed 4 terrorists in an operation in Everton district of southwestern Balochistan. In a statement, the military's media wing says security forces also recovered a large cache of arms, ammunition and other equipment. It also said that the multiple hideouts and the administrative camps of the terrorists were destroyed in the operation. This comes a week after the army killed a terrorist commander, Ihsanullah, near the inter-district boundary of North and South Waziristan. The UK, France and Germany have vowed to continue the UN sanctions relief for Iran beyond the September 20 deadline. In a letter to the UN Security Council, the European countries opposed the deadline set by the US to reimpose sanctions on Iran. The UN envoys for the European trio said any move by Washington to reinstate the sanctions on Tehran would be illegal. The envoys said they have worked tirelessly to preserve the 2015 nuclear agreement with Iran, which also includes Russia and China. They added that Europe is fully determined to uphold the UN Security Council resolution encompassing the deal. Earlier, Washington formally notified the UN of its demand to restore sanctions on Tehran, citing violations of the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Washington initiated snapback protocol to reinstate the embargoes on Tehran back in August. Iran has vowed to avenge the assassination of General Qassem Suleimani, who was killed in a U.S. missile strike in Iraq earlier this year. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Chief Major General Hossein Salami said Tehran will target anyone involved in the assassination. In response to the U.S. allegations that Iran might target a U.S. envoy, Salami said Iran will never target a female diplomat as revenge. He said Iran's military is ready to respond to any provocation from the U.S. President Donald Trump says the U.S. is dealing very well with tough and smart Taliban. At a news conference, Trump said the Taliban are very sharp, but even they are tired of 19-year-long fighting. The U.S. president said Washington is having very good discussions with the group's representatives on the Afghan peace process. He said the number of U.S. forces in Afghanistan will be less than 4,000 in near future. Trump said the U.S. will be out of Afghanistan because certain things have to be fulfilled, saying 19 years is a long time. The U.S. president's statement comes amid ongoing intra-Afghan talks in Doha. The UN Security Council says it strongly encourages Afghan parties to the peace negotiations to continue pursuing confidence-building measures. In a statement, the Security Council welcomed the start of intra-Afghan talks in Doha. It urged the two sides to put efforts into reductions in violence and continue to engage in good faith. The Council said it strongly reaffirms its commitment to the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of Afghanistan. Meanwhile, the Taliban say China has assured its support and assistance for peace in Afghanistan. In a tweet, a spokesperson, Dr. Mohammed Naeem, said a Taliban delegation headed by Mullah Baradar Akhund met with Chinese Special Envoy for Afghanistan, Lu Jian, in Doha. The U.S. military is stepping up its troops' presence in northeastern Syria amid escalating regional tensions with Russia. In a statement, a U.S. military spokesperson said the Central Command deployed equipment to augment U.S. forces in the region. He stressed the measures will ensure the safety of the coalition forces, saying Washington does not seek conflict with any other nation in Syria. The development comes after a rising number of attacks by ISIS in the region, which sparked concerns the terrorist group is re-emerging. Earlier, President Donald Trump told reporters at the White House that the U.S. is out of Syria and remaining forces are there just to guard the oil reserves. Now, Beijing has issued rules on its proposed list of unreliable entities, saying it will target foreign firms and individuals endangering China's sovereignty and security. The Commerce Ministry said the list will help protect legitimate rights and interests of the Chinese enterprises and individuals. The ministry said it resolutely opposes the U.S. decision to ban WeChat and video sharing app TikTok from U.S. app stores starting Sunday night. Earlier, the U.S. Commerce Department said the new measures will bar citizens from downloading the apps through any app store in the U.S. TikTok is currently in talks to be acquired by the American software maker Oracle. If a planned partnership is agreed and approved by President Donald Trump, the app would not be banned. India has reported the world's highest 1,247 COVID-19 deaths in the past 24 hours, taking the toll over 85,000.
The Indian Health Ministry said more than 93,000 people tested positive for the virus in a day. with infection tally crossing 5.3 million. Officials said 30 lawmakers have been found infected with the coronavirus during the ongoing parliament session. Meanwhile, Brazil has registered 858 deaths and nearly 40,000 cases in a day. Brazil's health ministry said the countrywide death toll has surged to nearly 136,000, almost 4.5 million infections. Globally, the virus has claimed over 950,000 lives and infected more than 30 million people so far.
In Pakistan, 7 more people have died from COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. The health ministry says the country's death toll has reached 6,415. The ministry said 645 people tested positive for the virus overnight. It said there are 6,572 active infections, while the total confirmed cases have crossed 305,000 mark. The ministry said over 292,000 people have recovered so far. Belarus has warned the EU against inviting opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya to a ministerial meeting of the bloc next week. The foreign ministry said the participation of Tikhanovskaya in the meeting will be deemed as interference in Belarus's internal affairs. Earlier at the UN Human Rights Council, European ministers denounced the repression of demonstrations. The council agreed to give the UN Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet a mandate to monitor the situation in Belarus. However, Minsk's foreign ministry termed the vote as a dangerous precedent. The country has been rocked by weeks of protests against the alleged rigging in last month's presidential election. Libya's military has rejected a deal announced by warlord Khalifa Haftar on the resumption of oil production. On Friday, Haftar agreed to lift his oil blockade for a month in return of conditions and guarantees that ensure a fair distribution of wealth. In an interview, commander of the Western Military Zone, Major General Osama Joili, said any unannounced agreement is doomed to fail. The blockade by Eastern forces has cost Libya $9 billion of loss in revenue so far this year. Diplomatic efforts have been underway in recent weeks to reach a political solution to the Libyan conflict. Moving on, Iraq's President Barham Saleh says he seeks to enforce the rule of law at the highest level of government. Speaking at a conference, he said the reformation process requires the establishment of a favorable political climate by holding early elections. Saleh said there was no reason to hold back in holding the corrupt accountable, including those who impede the reformation process. For his part, Prime Minister Mustafa Al-Kadhimi called on the country's presidency and the parliament to finish the election law. Early elections are scheduled to be held in Iraq in June next year. Perus Congress has failed to remove the country's president, Martin Vizcarra, from office and in impeachment trial. The Congress fell short of the required 87 votes out of 130 to oust the centrist leader on the charges of moral incapacity. The opposition-dominated Congress cast 32 votes in favor of ousting Vizcarra, while there were 78 votes against the measure and 15 abstentions. During his address to the Congress, Vizcarra said the country should not be distracted from the real challenges it faces.
No puede estar detenido.
Peru cannot be halted for the content of some audio tapes with no validity. The management of the pandemic and the reopening of the economy cannot be left in suspense. I am convinced that the democratic values of the members of Congress will prevail. It is very serious to have the country plunged into this uncertainty, and therefore I ask for sincere forgiveness before the nation's representatives.
Last week, the Congress charged the president with moral incapacity over leaked audio tapes and alleged ties to a little-known singer involved in a fraud case. Now, moving on to Venezuela, which says the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's South American war tour has failed. In a televised speech, President Nicolas Maduro said Pompeo wanted to stir up war against Caracas, but the plan has backfired. Maduro said Caracas will continue on its path to peace, progress, and freedom. He said Venezuela's armed forces and Bolivarian militia will be ready to defend peace, territorial integrity, and the right of the people to progress.
Mike Pompeo, you will continue failing. This is an election tour looking for votes to see if you can bother the region and find votes. It seems like the polls aren't in your favor. They're not in your favor. And they're looking for votes around Venezuela, but Mike Pompeo, Venezuela is on its feet.
It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back. US President Donald Trump says the pandemic-enforced restrictions on Canada border will be lifted pretty soon. Talking to media, Trump said Washington was looking to get back to normal business with Ottawa. Trump's remarks come just hours after the two countries confirmed the restrictions will remain in place until at least October the 21st. Canada's Public Safety Minister Bill Blair confirmed the month-long extension in border restrictions. The White House is yet to comment on Trump's statement, who praised the US-Mexico-Canada agreement in his remarks.
Well, we're going to see that. We're looking at the border with Canada. Canada would like it opened, and, we want to get back to normal business. We have the USMCA all done, the new trade deal replacing NAFTA, which was probably the worst trade deal ever made by anybody. It was grossly incompetent. We have a great trade deal right now, and so we're going to be opening the borders pretty soon.
The restrictions were first imposed in March and rolled over several times and were due to expire on September the 21st. Now moving on, U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died aged 87 from the metastatic pancreas cancer. Flags outside the White House and the Supreme Court in the U.S. Capitol were lowered to half-mast. In a statement, U.S. Supreme Court said Ginsburg died at a home in Washington. The court said Ginsburg was a champion of women's rights and the court's leading liberal voice. Chief Justice John Roberts said the nation lost a tireless and resolute jurist of a historic stature. President Donald Trump said the nation mourns the loss of a titan of the law who inspired all Americans. Trump has already named two conservative justices to the court. Meanwhile, Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden said the winner of the presidential election should choose the Ginsburg's successor. A UN agency says eastern Ukraine's protracted conflict is settling down. The conflict has claimed the lives of 14,000 people since violence first broke out in 2014. At a briefing, UN official Jens Lark says security incidents have dropped by more than half since a ceasefire in late July. He said eastern Ukraine has a sense of normality and people are hoping it will become sustainable. Lark said the calm is remarkable after years of fighting between the Ukrainian forces and pro-Russian separatists. Signed in 2015, the Minsk Agreement was drafted to stop hostilities in eastern Ukraine. France's President Emmanuel Macron has called on Turkey to reopen a responsible dialogue on the eastern Mediterranean. Tensions have recently escalated over the issue of energy exploration in the disputed waters. In a tweet, Macron said Ankara must hold talks in good faith. Earlier, Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar said Macron wants to divert attention from his country's domestic problems. Akar said the EU does not have any authority to change rules or draw borders in the eastern Mediterranean. A contingent of the Pakistan Army has participated in the opening ceremony of the multinational military exercise Kavkaz 2020 in Russia. In a tweet, the military's media wing said the exercise will be held from September the 21st to 26th. It said the exercises are aimed at assessing the ability of troops to react to various challenges. It said the exercises offer an opportunity for troops to learn from each other's experiences. China and Iran are also among the countries participating in the drills. In Thailand, clashes broke out between police and protesters at the Thammasat University as demonstrators began rallying in Bangkok. Protesters are demanding the removal of former junta leader and military-backed Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, a new constitution and elections. Protest leaders are also demanding reforms to curb the power of King Maha Vajiralongkorn's monarchy. Protesters pushed the university gate after minutes of negotiation with a university official. Demonstrations have built in the country since mid-July, and the biggest so far drew 10,000 in Bangkok last month. Protest leader Padit Chaviwarak said that he believes as many as 100,000 people to show up, while the police said they expect up to 50,000 to join the protests. In Colombia, 2 police officers have been arrested over a custodial killing that sparked violent protests. Talking to the media, President Ivan Duque said the officers had dishonored their uniforms. The prosecutor said the police officers have been fired and are facing charges of homicide and aggravated torture. They said a further 5 officers connected to the custodial death have been suspended. 13 civilians have been killed while hundreds injured in clashes during weeks of protests. On the 9th of September, police had repeatedly shot Javier Ordenes with a stun gun, who died in a hospital later. Thundershowers bring relief to the fire-ravaged U.S. state of Oregon. Rain helps a force of more than 6,000 firefighters making a further headway against 10 major blazes still burning in the state. Officials said they are making steady progress suppressing the fires. Meanwhile, California Fire Department said the milder weather is helping the firefight as crews continue to gain ground on many of the major incidents. Several homes were destroyed by the unrelenting wildfire in California that reached a Mojave Desert community. Thousands of evacuees, particularly in Oregon, remained huddled in emergency shelters, mobile trailers, and hotel rooms. 2 people have died as Hurricane Lanos pounded central Greece, causing electricity outages and flooding homes. Such cyclones first appeared in Greece in 1995 and have become more frequent in recent years. Fire brigade officials say the body of an elderly woman was found in a flooded house in a village near Farsala. Authorities are searching for 2 more people who are reported missing, warning residents to remain indoors and stay alert. Widespread rains are possible over the next 48 hours. Lanos is now expected to track southeast, but it is not forecast that it will affect capital Athens. Thousands of refugees have been left without shelter with nowhere to go after a fire in an overcrowded refugee camp in Moria. Amid the misery, an Afghan artist is bringing the refugees' charred ruins of Moria camp on his canvas. More in this report.
Flames engulfed Moria migrants camp, forcing thousands of people to flee. They are now forced to sleep in the street without proper shelter, sanitation, food or water. An Afghan refugee, Ahmed Shukran Shehzad, witnessed the sufferings, and being an artist, he found a way to express the pain and hardship migrants faced. He has picked up a brush and depicted the charred ruins of Moria camp on his canvas.
People were awake night and day. Children were uncomfortable. Women were uncomfortable. People that are in need, pregnant women, it was difficult for them to live there also.
Shehzad used to teach art lessons to refugee children before the tragedy hit them. Through his art, he wants to divert the world's attention to the troubles of migrants living in a makeshift camp.
I myself suffered greatly in this way, and I wanted to imagine such a scene in my mind and draw it so that people around the world could see and understand, feel something inside, and realize that migrants, whether they are Somali, Afghan, Arab, Congolese, African, they are all facing the same difficulties. They should all be felt compassion for, and they should all be assisted.
The inferno has razed most of Moria to the ground, along with many of the migrants' personal belongings. Greece government has been moving the migrants to a new temporary tent camp being referred to as a Karatepe.
More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. In the English Premier League, Everton beat West Brom 5-2 in a thrilling contest at Goodison Park. Dominic Calvert-Lewin clinched a hat-trick for Everton, while new signing James Rodriguez scored his first goal. The Baggies took an early lead through an excellent solo effort by Grady Diangaga. Everton equalised midway through the first half when Calvert-Lewin scored from a back heel. He then scored 2 second-half goals to seal the win for Everton. The result has pushed Everton to the top of the table. Aston Villa have signed forward Bertrand Traore from Lyon in a deal worth more than $24 million. Traore returns to Premier League following 3 seasons in France. Deco made 126 appearances for Lyon and scored 33 goals after his arrival from Chelsea in 2017. He will join his former teammate John Terry, who is now assistant coach at the Villa Park. Deco is Villa's fourth major signing following the arrival of goalkeeper Emiliano, striker Oli Watkins and right back Matty Cash. He will add attacking firepower to an Aston Villa squad that finished 17th last season, narrowly avoiding relegation. In the National Basketball Association, the Los Angeles Lakers beat Denver Nuggets by 126 points to 114 in their playoff game at the NBA's Biosecure Bubble in Florida. Lakers grabbed a 1-0 lead in the 7-game Western Conference Final Series. Lakers power forward Anthony Davis posted 37 points and 10 rebounds, while LeBron James added 15 points and 12 assists. LA's point guard Kentavious Caldwell-Pope scored 18 points, including 3 of 5 on three-pointers. Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic each scored 21 points for Denver, but the Nuggets were outscored in the third quarter. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.